Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode here at Whiteboard Medicine. Today we're going to be talking about a tricky concept. It was actually one requested by you all, so keep those requests coming. We appreciate it. Sometimes it takes us a minute to get them out, but we will get to them. And that is double triggering versus reverse triggering in mechanical ventilation. So this is part of our mechanical ventilation kind of advanced series on ventilator desynchrony. And we're going to dive into these two different types of ventilator desynchrony. They can be very tricky to tease out which is which, but we're going to give you some ways in which you can do it. And once you do, the management of them is quite different, which is why it's so important. As a reminder, these videos or episodes are never intended to be acted upon as medical advice. Stick around to the end of the episode for the full disclaimer. And then secondarily, shameless plug, this study guide as well as practice questions for all of our episodes we put on our Patreon page, so you can check that out, tagged in the description. We also have a weekly newsletter, and then both podcasts and YouTube episodes. So any interest, we'd love for you to join the community. Check out any of those. Shameless plugs now completed. Let's dive in. So to start with, overview of just ventilator desynchrony in general. So patient-ventilator desynchrony occurs when the timing or the magnitude of the ventilator assistance does not match the patient's own respiratory efforts. This can lead to things like ineffective ventilation, increased work of breathing, or even injury to the lung, ventilator-induced lung injury, also known as ventilator-associated lung injury. In addition to that, these types of desynchrony patterns can be identifiable, and you can intervene on them to improve patient-ventilator synchrony, because not only can it lead to these negative things, but frankly, it's quite uncomfortable for patients too, right? They're on a life support machine, a ventilator that is keeping them alive to some degree, otherwise they wouldn't be on it. And we want to make that as comfortable as we can for them. Two important types of desynchrony, and the two we're going to be talking about here are double triggering and reverse triggering. Okay, so start by defining these two things. What is double triggering and what is reverse triggering? Well, double triggering is when there's two delivered breaths in rapid succession with minimal exhalation time between them. Okay, so the ventilator gives the patient two separate breaths in rapid succession without enough time for the patient to exhale much, which then means they get double the tidal volume. And this is most often due to the patient's inspiratory effort extending beyond the set inspiratory time. So they essentially get a breath, right? Here's maybe a pressure scaler. They get a breath, but they're still breathing in even when the ventilator wants them to exhale, and they keep breathing in. They mobilize negative pressure, which then prompts the ventilator to give them a second breath without any time to exhale. So they get one breath, two breaths. They get twice the tidal volume, and that leads to ventilator-induced or associated lung injury, right? Reverse triggering, on the other hand, can look similar, but is from a completely different cause. And this is the ventilator-initiated breath actually induces this diaphragmatic contraction, kind of this reflex. And to be frank, the exact mechanism here is somewhat unknown. This is most likely what is happening, but why and to who exactly that happens to is still very nebulous. Okay, after the ventilator gives that inspiratory breath, there's this diaphragmatic contraction reflex. And that then makes the ventilator think the patient is wanting to trigger another breath, and thus it gives another breath. So it looks similar. There's one breath, second breath, but in double triggering, it's because the patient is trying to breathe longer than the ventilator is giving a breath for. Whereas in reverse triggering, the ventilator gives a breath, it causes the diaphragm to have this reflexive contraction, which then fools the ventilator into thinking they want another breath. Okay? Both, though, can cause 2 times the tidal volume, which can cause not only ventilator desynchrony and patient discomfort, but ventilator-induced lung injury as well. So mechanisms and causes, and we're going to dive more into these concepts too. That was just kind of the brief definitions, but mechanisms and causes. So mechanism of double triggering. As we said, a patient's inspiratory effort in double triggering continues past or beyond the ventilator's inspiratory time. So they're still trying to inhale, even after the ventilator's inspiratory time. This then creates flow and pressure that then makes the ventilator give a second breath. So the flow or pressure returns to baseline from the ventilator, but the patient still wants to inhale. So it immediately triggers another breath. Common causes here can be the biggest one, high patient drive. All right, those patients are taking huge breaths. It might be pain, might be anxiety, it might be compensatory for metabolic acidosis. Other things can cause it too. A really short inspiratory time can cause it. So let's say you set the inspiratory time. This is the amount of time in inspiration. It's something like 0.8 seconds. But the patient actually wants to inspire for 1.2 seconds. That means the patient keeps it inspiring for 0.4 seconds even after the ventilator has stopped giving that breath. That prolonged or extended inspiratory time then prompts the ventilator again to give a second immediate breath because that patient is still inhaling even after the breath is done. The other thing that can cause this is insufficient flow. This is particular to volume control modes. Volume control modes have a calculated flow based on the volume and respiratory rate, as well as the I time and some other things. But if the patient wants more flow of air, they're quote-unquote air hungry. This can lead to flow starvation, which is a type of ventilator desynchrony that we've talked about in previous episodes, linked in the mechanical ventilation playlist in the description, where we got tons of mechanical ventilation content. But this flow starvation can then lead to a second breath being delivered, okay? So mechanism and common causes of double triggering. What about mechanisms and common causes of reverse triggering? Very different than double triggering. The mechanism here is that the ventilator delivers a breath passively. The patient is not prompting that breath. And that passive breath stretches the patient's diaphragm and the respiratory muscles. This kind of stretch reflex then triggers this reflexive kind of diaphragmatic contraction that the ventilator mistakes for the patient wanting a breath, so the ventilator delivers a second immediate breath. And the common causes here are way different than double triggering. So reverse triggering causes can actually be from deep sedation or incomplete paralysis. Whereas, as we said, double triggering was because the patient actually has too much respiratory drive. In reverse triggering, the sedation actually might be too deep. High ventilator rates and large tidal volumes can kind of create more diaphragmatic stretch and lead to double triggering at times. And then we don't use things like controlled mandatory ventilation very often. Most of our ventilation is assist controlled. Controlled mandatory is that the ventilator just delivers the respiratory rate that you set, whereas AC assist controlled is that the ventilator will get you to that respiratory rate, but if the patient triggers a breath, it'll just support that breath. So the old school controlled mandatory ventilation mode, again, that we don't use, can lead to reverse triggering. But I think most often the times that I've seen it are deep sedation or incomplete paralysis. How do we differentiate these two? Well, there's a couple hints just in general, and then we'll talk about scalars or waveforms. So when it comes to double triggering and when it comes to reverse triggering, the first differentiator that we can use is the timing of patient effort, okay? Double triggering, the patient's effort is usually before or during the first breath, and then it persists into the exhalatory phase. This triggers a second breath almost immediately. Many of these patients have flow starvation, so you'll see them kind of take this robust inspiratory effort, and they'll still be inspiring even after the breath is done. Whereas reverse triggering, the machine, the ventilator gives the patient a breath, and after that breath is going in, the patient has this reflexive inspiratory effort. So it didn't precede the breath. The inspiratory effort started after the breath. Waveform signatures we're going to talk more about below. I'll read these out now, but then we'll dive more into it in a second. The waveform signatures for double triggering are kind of two square decaying curves without much expiratory flow between breaths, back breaths. Again, we'll draw it out and talk more about it. Whereas reverse triggering is the single ventilator breath waveform followed by this kind of secondary negative deflection, which I'll draw out for everybody. All right, what else? Expiratory time. The expiratory time in double triggering, nearly absent, right? Because they are not exhaling, they're still inhaling, even when the ventilator wants them to exhale. Whereas reverse triggering, there's usually a normal amount of expiratory time after the machine breath, Patient effort usually overlaps the inspiratory phase, and this will make more sense with those scalars. All right, and then patient comfort. Patients who are double triggering often have dyspnea, accessory muscle use, and discomfort because their respiratory effort is increased compared to what the ventilator is giving them. Whereas patients who have reverse triggering, they're usually quiet, right? They might be passively ventilated. They might be deeply sedated. These patients do not have the degree of kind of visual discomfort that patients with double triggering have. Sedation, you can get double triggering at any sedation depth, and then reverse triggering is more common with deep sedation like we talked about. So let's get into the clinical implications. Actually, before we do that, I'm going to scroll down to waveforms. I should have put these in the other order, but let's talk about the waveforms now. So double triggering, I'm just going to write kind of increased inspiratory phase. Reverse triggering, I'm going to write diaphragmatic reflex, just so that people kind of have those buzzwords to think about while we write them out. So we're going to do these scalars based on volume control. And the scalars are waveforms, right? There's pressure versus time, flow versus time, and there's volume versus time. And the pressure scalar, maybe we'll, for the sake of room, start with the pressure scalar here. The pressure scalar normally looks something like this. So it's pressure and time. And this is your PEEP, is where it starts. We've had a bunch of videos on scalars, so check those videos and episodes, both podcasts and YouTube. So check those on the playlist. But this is your PEEP. It's not at zero pressure. And then you get your pressure goes up, comes back down, right? Goes up, comes back down. Reverse triggering, double triggering is, you'll see this kind of negative deflection. This is the patient starting to inhale, right? And then the ventilator says, okay, that's going to trigger a breath for me. So I'm going to give that breath, and it'll then want to exhale, but the patient will still be inhaling. So you get this negative deflection that then prompts a second breath. Okay? So see that these are two immediate breaths, breath one and breath two. And there's very little exhalatory time here. And you get these negative deflections, which are where the patient is giving continued inspiratory effort that then prompts that second breath. And in the volume scalar, so if we did volume over time, what you'll see is normal volume scalar looks something like this, right? So that's a normal volume scalar. This is zero volume. This is your tidal volume you set at. It goes up to the tidal volume, down to zero. But in double triggering, you get twice as much tidal volume because there's these two breaths combined into one. So if you set your tidal volume at 300 cc's, right, they get 300 cc's in this breath. But here they actually get 600 cc's because they have two breaths that were given at once. Reverse triggering, on the other hand, if we draw out the scalars, this will be pressure versus time. We know what normal looks like already. This is what normal looks like. You'll see this, right? You won't see a downward deflection. The ventilator will just give a passive breath. Okay? But then when we come back down, you do see this downward deflection. And this is that diaphragmatic reflex that is causing the patient to kind of reflexively inhale in. And if it causes true kind of reverse triggering where it triggers the ventilator, it'll look like this. Passive breath, right, comes back down, and then you get this kind of diaphragmatic reflex, but that then triggers a second breath. So you don't have the initial, there's no initial patient effort. You see this kind of reflexive patient effort right after that sometimes will trigger a second breath, breath one, breath two, and it sometimes won't. And volume scalar would look the same, volume and time, normal breath as we did, abnormal breath, twice as high, right? 300 cc's, if that's what you set the tidal volume at, compared to 600. So the scalars look similar, but the things that would stick out would be, in double triggering, you usually have patient effort to start the breath, whereas in reverse triggering, there's no patient effort. Reverse triggering, you usually will have a negative deflection afterwards, and that sometimes prompts a breath and sometimes doesn't. Okay? And then we went through some of the other things that stick out, not related to scalars, above. So let's get into the clinical implications then. So the big risks here are very similar. Double triggering risks of things like volume trauma and barotrauma, because you're getting these huge tidal volumes because it's the sum of those two breaths like we talked about. The way to manage it is increase the inspiratory time, increase the I time, or adjust the inspiratory flow, give them more flow to meet the patient's needs. You can reduce the respiratory drive by treating pain, anxiety, adjust sedation. You don't want to start by adjusting, like making a patient into deep sedation. Try these other things first. Adjust the inspiratory time, flow. You can switch modes. Again, we don't really use these much, but sometimes if you switch from volume control to pressure control liberates flow a little bit. Patients can kind of determine their own flow. So if patients are having a lot of double triggering or flow starvation in volume control, if you switch them to pressure control, they tend to like that better. So my approach is I adjust the I time, I look at the flow rate, I do all that, I make sure they're not in pain, make sure they're not anxious. I will sometimes switch modes to pressure control, and if I can't fix it at all, and if it's causing these large tidal volumes that are increasing barotrauma, I sometimes will increase their sedation, but that's kind of a last step. Reverse triggering risks the same thing, right? Breath stacking, increased pressures, barotrauma, lung injury, all that kind of stuff. What you do for breath stacking, for reverse triggering is different though. Sometimes lightening sedation can actually help reverse triggering, right? The exact opposite of what helps double triggering. Sometimes, if you deepen it briefly, you can kind of recouple the reflex. But this does not this is not a long-term solution, if that makes sense. Adjust ventilator settings. Reduce the set rate or volume to minimize the diaphragmatic stress. So if you can decrease the tidal volume or decrease the respiratory rate, sometimes that can help if a patient can tolerate that. And then again, adjusting modes can help too. But really lightening sedation is something to try, dropping the tidal volume or respiratory rate. And then if you have to try to change modes, you can. Okay, so quick reference for double triggering and reverse triggering, and this will be the end of it. Again, this study guide as well as practice questions will be on our Patreon page if you have an interest in having access to it. But the reference guide here, effort timing, double triggering effort overlaps and outlasts the machine. That's why that pressure scalar, you get patient effort, they get a breath, and then that effort continues, so they get a second breath, okay? In reverse triggering, effort follows the machine, right? So you don't have patient effort to trigger the breath, that's just the ventilator breath, and then you kind of get that patient effort, which is not really patient effort, just diaphragmatic reflex afterwards. Ventilator mode, you can see it in volume control, especially with short inspiratory times for double triggering, whereas reverse triggering is more in controlled modes, which you don't use too often anyway. Sedation, high drive usually triggers double triggering. Deep sedation, on the other hand, triggers reverse triggering. Primary fix is to match the inspiratory time and flow rate to the patient for double triggering, adjust rate and volume or sedation for reverse triggering. So hopefully that's kind of a nice quick reference reminder. Hopefully that was helpful. Let us know what thoughts, comments, questions you have. We'd love you to subscribe, join the community, check out our Patreon page, our weekly newsletter, podcast, YouTube channel, all that good stuff. And either way, stay well, keep learning, and we'll see you all next time. Everybody, and welcome to Whiteboard Medicine. We appreciate you checking out the video. Here at Whiteboard Medicine, our goal is to create medical education content for all types of interested learners. That includes videos, practice questions, study resources, and much more. We would love for you to join our community by subscribing, hit that bell button. We're also working to build a high-yield Patreon page. It's going to be full of practice questions, video outlines, notes, commercial-free content, and much more.
None of these videos are intended to be acted upon as medical advice. Please pause the video here and read this disclaimer in its entirety before moving on.